Dear students, now we shall learn a new lesson, environmental management. What are we going to learn in this lesson? We will learn about the renewable and non-renewable resources, how they are differing from each other. We will gain knowledge about the need for conservation of these various natural resources, and we will know about the methods that are adopted to conserve natural resources. We will learn to create awareness about the exploitation of these natural resources and to get motivated to participate in the protection of environment and its management. In the beginning, man was provided with so many natural resources like groundwater, wind, solar energy, forest, etc. by God himself in nature. He was utilizing these natural resources for his better living. Man was utilizing them continuously and it was getting renewed simultaneously along with their exploitation. And so they maintain a natural recycling. The amount that man was using for its living got replenished by proper management in nature. But when there was a population explosion, when the human population got expanded, it resulted in the expanding need of man. And with the help of this scientific and technological advancement, man started using these natural resources in a large scale. And the continuous increase in the population causes increased demand for these natural resources. And this causes imbalance in the expenditure and the renewal or replenishment of these natural resources that resulted in the lack of natural resources. And so we need to manage with the available natural resources for better living, and we must be very much mindful to use them carefully without exploiting them. We need to utilize them for our need. Conservation and judicious use of resources. Natural resources like forest, groundwater, wildlife, wind, solar energy, they are conserved for their biological, economic and recreational values. The use of these natural resources in excess and in unplanned way will lead to the imbalance in environment, and that becomes a problem for the future generation. So there must be a judicious balance between exploitation of these resources and its replenishment. This can be attained by the proper utilization of the nature and its resources, and this is termed as conservation. So we have to build a sustainable world. We should not exploit everything and finish off before we die, because the nature is meant for many generations of people who will come and live over it. So we have to sustain these natural resources in some or the other way. How to do it? And this constitute the practices which will help to utilize the energy efficiently and avoid wastage. Avoiding wastage and avoiding the usage of plastic and non-biodegradable things, and take care of the environment in which we live. And so it is very important to manage and use our resources very carefully so as to preserve them for the future generation. First one, forest and its importance. Forests are important natural resources because they contain microorganisms, flowering plants, shrubs, climbers, trees, and they provide a vast living place for the wild animals. So if the forests are destroyed, there won't be any wild animals. And if the wild animals are not there, the food web will be affected. When the food webs are affected, stage by stage, all the living organisms will be destroyed over the biosphere. And so we need to protect these forests. So forests are very important for human life. It is a source of wide range of renewable natural resources because they give us the wood, food, fodder. Fodder means the food for the animals, fiber, and also medicines. Forests are major factors of environmental concern. So when we conserve the forests, the nature becomes very much amicable for the human living, and we will be protected from a lot of natural disasters like flood, famine, earthquake, landslides, so many hazards. And it will also protect the wildlife and the act of catchment for water conservation. So forest play a very important role in maintaining the ecological balance. Deforestation and its effect. What do you mean by deforestation? It is the destruction of large area of forest. So when we cut down the trees and we destruct these forests for reasons like agriculture, urbanization, construction of the dam, roads, buildings, etc., we lose a large area of forest. And it becomes a threat to economy also. The quality of life and the future of the environment also gets spoiled. So India is losing about 1.5 million hectares of forest cover every year. So every year when it is continuously lost, at one stage we will not be having even a piece of land for forest. Chipko movement. It was started as a non-violent voice in 1973. And its aim was to protect and conserve the trees from being cut. The name of the movement Chipko, that comes from the word embrace. The villagers will hug the trees and they encircle them, by which they were able to prevent it from being cut. And this movement originated in Uttar Pradesh, and it was started by Sundarlal Bahuguna and his wife, and it has achieved major victory in the year 1980, by which they have banned the cutting of the trees in the Himalayan forest. What are the effects of deforestation? So deforestation gives rise to a lot of ecological problems and natural disasters like flood, drought means varachi, soil erosion, removal of the topsoil, loss of wildlife. When there was no forest, no wildlife also. Extinction of species. Many species become no more on this earth's surface. And there was imbalance in the biogeochemical cycle. And it has altered the climatic conditions, alteration of the seasons, etc. and desertification. So we need to conserve forest. What is this conservation of forest? India actually originally it had an area of 752.3 lakh hectare of reserved forest and 215.1 lakh hectares of protected forest. It is important to measure the forest area by which we will be able to maintain them, and we need to conserve this forest. Afforestation. Afforestation means planting more number of trees and protecting the trees with multiple use, which will help in the restoration of the green cover on the earth's surface. So destruction of forests should be avoided. It is prevented. There was a program called Vana Mahotsava, by which they planted more number of trees in the free areas, in the free land, and they protected the existing forest. Social forestry program. This program was undertaken on a large scale by the active participation of the public and utilizing the common land to produce firewood. Firewood means viragu. Fodder means food for the cattle, timber, for the benefit of the rural communities, people who are living in the rural areas. And this has prevented the pressure on the existing forest, and they safeguarded for the future of tribal peoples. Forest conservation through laws. So government also put forth many laws and rules to protect the forest through National Forest Policy in 1952 and 1988, Forest Conservation Act in 1980, etc. Wildlife and its conservation. So wildlife refers to the undomesticated animals that are living in their natural habitat like forests, grasslands and desert. And here there won't be any human habitation, people will not be living. But nowadays many of the forests are being cut down and they become the places of human beings. Due to the increased activities of the urbanization, many forest area cover has been eliminated, has been removed from the earth's surface. And wildlife are needed for maintaining the biological diversity, and they promote the economic activities also through tourism. So conservation of forest and wildlife, they are interrelated. When there is forest, there will be wildlife. Decline in wildlife population. So wildlife in India had a great natural heritage. So exploitation of the wildlife resources has decreased global wildlife population up to 52% between 1970 to 2014. Because of the overexploitation and shrinking of the forest cover has resulted in the animals being extinct, and some are threatened to the verge of extinction. And in recent years, human encroachment has posed a threat to the wildlife. What are the aims of wildlife management? So why should we manage wildlife? Why should we conserve wildlife? This is to control and limit the exploitation of the species. By conserving them, we will not be exploiting any species of organism, by which we contribute to the increase in the diversity of organism. Preserve the plants and animals from extinction. So wildlife management will help to preserve the plants and animals from getting extinct. So maintenance of the threatened species and protect the species which are at the verge of extinction. So the species which are very few in number, which are at the verge of extinction, are found out, and they are taken more care to preserve them, to protect them from any danger. Preserving the endangered species. To study the ecological relationship of plants and animals in their natural habitat. So we need to protect the wildlife to study about the interrelationship between the plants and animals. Both are related to each other. We have already learned about this in the food web and the food chain. Hunting and poaching should be prohibited to conserve the wildlife. Establishment of the natural parks, wildlife sanctuaries, protected areas and biosphere reserves also helps to conserve the wildlife. The Wildlife Protection Act was established in the year 1972. By this act, we were able to prohibit killing and hunting the specified animals. So some animals cannot be hunted, like we know about the hunting of deer is prohibited. If they hunt, people will be jailed, they will be imprisoned. So Wildlife Protection Act constitute the sanctuaries, national parks and closed areas for wildlife conservation, and special schemes were introduced for the preservation of the endangered species. The Central Zoo Authority and the recognition of the zoos were made to restrict and regulate and prohibit the trade of wild animals and their products. Jim Corbett National Park was first established in the year 1936 in Uttarakhand, India, and there are about 15 biosphere reserves in India. So one among them is the Nilgiris, which is in Tamil Nadu. Organization involved in the conservation of wildlife: Indian Board for Wildlife, Worldwide Fund for Nature, World Conservation Union, International Union for Conservation of the Nature and the Natural Resources, Convention on International Trade in the Endangered Species, Bombay Natural History Society, Wildlife Preservation Society of India, Tehran. Radhika Ramasamy belongs to Venkatachalapuram village of Theni district in Tamil Nadu, became the reputed wildlife photographer. Her passion was towards bird photography, and her photo book on wildlife titled The Best of Wildlife Moments, and it was published in November 2014. Information bits: wildlife conservation initiatives in India. Project Tiger and Project Elephant has been launched in the year 1973 and 1972 respectively. Crocodile Conservation Project was launched in 1976, Turtle Conservation Project was launched in 1999, and the Indian Rhino Vision 2020 to conserve the rhinoceros. At least 3,000 one-horned rhinos in Assam, India by 2020. Soil erosion. What is meant by soil erosion? It is the removal of the upper layer of the soil by the action of the wind and water is called as soil erosion. Soil erosion causes loss of the humus or the fertile soil, top fertile soil, and the nutrients in it, by which it decreases the fertility of the soil, and so it must be prevented. So what are the agents that actually do this soil erosion? It is the high velocity of wind, air current, flowing water, landslide, and some of the human activities like deforestation, farming, mining, overgrazing by cattle, etc. How to manage the soil erosion? So we have to retain vegetation cover so that the soil will not be exposed directly to the high velocity of the wind and the water. So retaining the soil with the vegetation or the plants will help in preventing the erosion. We should avoid overgrazing of this cattle. It should be controlled. Crop rotation or the soil management will improve the soil organic matter, by which it will sustain the fertility of the soil. Runoff water must be stored in the catchment area, by which we can preserve the top fertile soil. Reforestation, if the trees or plants are removed, they must be planted again, by which we can prevent the soil erosion. Terracing. So in terracing is done in the mountain slopes by cutting the mountain slopes, by culturing the plants in the terrace forming, and the contour ploughing will help to maintain the soil. Wind speed can be controlled by planting trees. So large number of tall big trees can be maintained in the region where we have forceful wind, by which it can prevent the soil erosion. Renewable and non-renewable energy resources. Energy is an important input for development. Without energy, there will not be any development. So expansion of this energy, possible energy, is very much important, and it must be related to the agricultural and industrial development in every part of the world. Energy resources are classified into non-renewable and renewable energy resources. Now, non-renewable energy resources, they are exhaustible energy. They will be finished off, they will be used up. So energy which is obtained from the sources that cannot renew by themselves in short period are called as non-renewable energy resources. Example for them: coal, petrol, natural gas, nuclear power, etc. These are conventional energy resources, and it accounts for 90% of the world's production of commercial energy, and nuclear power accounts for only 10%. Renewable or inexhaustible energy resources. These energy resources, they are unlimited in nature and they can be renewed over a short period of time. They are continuously used up, harvested, and continuously replaced. They comprises of non-conventional energy resources that include the biofuel, biomass energy, geothermal energy, energy from the earth core, water energy, hydroelectric energy, tidal energy, solar energy, wave energy, and wind energy. Fossil fuels. What are fossil fuels? So these are the fuels that are found inside the earth crust and are the energy rich substances which are formed by the process called anaerobic decomposition of the buried dead organism over millions of years. So millions of years ago, lot of living organism, plants and animals, they got buried under the soil due to certain natural calamities, and due to the anaerobic decomposition of these dead organism, they are converted. This accumulated sedimentation of these things, these layers, produce heat and pressure, and the remains of the organisms are gradually transformed into hydrocarbons, which are now called as petroleum, coal and natural gas. Coal and petroleum. So coal and petroleum are natural resources and they are called as the fossil fuels. They are formed by the degradation of the biomass that is buried deep under the soil millions of years ago. So India is the third largest consumer of the crude oil in the world after United States and China. Coal is used for the production of electricity at the thermal power station. Petroleum is also known as crude oil, and when it is processed in the oil refineries, it will produce the petrol and the diesel, which are used to run the automobiles, trucks, trains, ships, aeroplanes, etc. And we know about the kerosene, LPG. LPG is the liquefied petroleum gas which we use for cooking, which is used as a domestic fuel for cooking food. Coal and petroleum can get exhausted if we continue to use them in rapid rate. So we have to be careful in using them with sense, by which we can keep these resources for the future generation. So the formation of these fossil fuels is very slow process, take longer time to get renewed. Steps to conserve the coal and petroleum resources. So there are some of the measures given here. If the electricity is saved, it will in turn will reduce the use of coal. So the amount of electricity we save is equal to the amount we produce. So to produce electricity, we are using large amount of coal. So if we save the electricity, it will in turn reduce the use of coal. Using bicycles for covering the short distances instead of using scooters or car. Using pressure cooker can reduce the consumption of the kerosene, LPG while cooking food. Solar cookers and solar heaters can be used wherever it is possible, and motor vehicles should be designed with fuel efficiency engine. Next we have the case study of Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is one of the 7 wonders of the world, and it is located in Agra, Uttar Pradesh. It is built with white marble. The Mathura oil refinery, which is owned by our Indian Oil Corporation, is situated near to it, and it pollutes the area around Taj Mahal by producing sulfur and nitrogen oxide. Because of this, the white marble of Agra became yellow due to air pollution. The government of India has set up emission standards around this monument to protect it from damage. Now the non-conventional or alternative energy resources. The energy crisis has shown that sustainable development in the energy sector is very essential, and so we must conserve this non-renewable conventional resources from rapid depletion by overuse, and replace this non-renewable conventional resources by non-polluting renewable sources which are environmentally clean. Efforts are made to develop these new sources of energy which are considered as the non-conventional sources of energy, and this will provide a greater help for the local people to access their needs and conserve the resources. Solar energy. Solar energy is the energy obtained from the sun. The sun gives out large amount of heat and light. It is only that 47% of the solar energy that falls on the atmosphere and reaches the earth's surface. If we could use just a small part of this energy, it would fulfill our country's complete energy need for power. So solar energy has advantages with certain limitations. What are solar energy devices? The energy from the sun is harnessed to produce the power. Various devices that are used to harness the sun's energy are called solar energy devices. First, solar cell. Solar cell is a photovoltaic device. That means it is a device which is used to produce electric current at the junction of two substances which are exposed to the sunlight, and it is made up of silicon. This converts the sunlight directly into electricity. So solar cell produces electricity without polluting the environment. Since it uses no fuel other than the sunlight, there is no harmful gases, no burning, no wastage. So they can be installed in remote and inaccessible areas like forest and hilly regions, where the setting up of the power plant is expensive. Uses of solar cells. It can be used for lighting the street lights, traffic signals, water pumping, battery charging system, etc. It is also used in the artificial satellites and space probes. It provides radio and TV transmission to remote areas. It is used in calculator, electronic toys and watches, etc. Next comes solar panel. It is nothing but the arrangement of many solar cells side by side connected to each other. So many solar cells forms a solar panel. The capacity to provide electric current is much greater than the solar panel. But the process of manufacturing it is expensive. Solar cooker. Solar cooker consists of an insulated metal box or wooden box in which it is painted inside to absorb maximum solar radiation. A thick glass sheet forms a cover over the box that will help as a reflector. A reflector plane mirror which is kept on the box will reflect the sunlight by which the food is cooked. Energy radiated by the sun helps in the cooking of the food. Solar thermal power plant. This thermal power plant, thermal power plant, many solar panels are used to concentrate large amount of sun rays to heat up the water, and this water is converted into steam, and the steam is used to run the turbines to produce the electricity. What are the advantages of solar energy? Solar energy is abundant in our country. It is free of cost. It is a renewable source of energy. It is always available and a renewable source of energy. It can be used for generating electricity or heat and does not cause pollution.